Hey, Joe, why don't you play us a little tune? The voice cut through the chatter in the grand corporate lobby, and a few heads turned. The words were dripping with amusement, like they were meant for a punchline everyone could share. It was supposed to be harmless, a bit of workplace banter. After all, Joe was the janitor, always pushing his mop, keeping his head down, wearing the same faded blue shirt and worn out work boots. He was a familiar face in the building, but not someone anyone expected to surprise them. The company was hosting a big networking event that afternoon. The marble floor gleamed under the warm lights. The air was thick with the smell of expensive catered food, and everywhere you looked, people were laughing, shaking hands, and trying to impress the CEO. And there, in the corner of the lobby, stood a beautiful black grand piano. It looked like a piece of art, perfectly polished, untouched. Few even knew if it worked. One of the young interns, surrounded by his equally smug friends, grinned and pointed toward it. "Come on, Joe. Let's see what you've got." His friends chuckled. To them, this was just a moment of light entertainment. Watch the janitor awkwardly tap a few keys, get a laugh, then move on. But Joe didn't laugh. He didn't even roll his eyes. He simply stopped mopping, set the handle of the mop against the wall, and slowly walked toward the piano. The laughter faded. It wasn't replaced by respect, just curiosity. When Joe sat down, the room expected clumsy hands, random notes, and maybe a sheepish grin before he got back to work. But the moment his fingers touched the keys, something changed. He didn't slam the notes or fumble around. He started gently, soft, delicate chords that seemed to rise up and fill every corner of the lobby. The sound was warm, rich, and alive. It was the kind of music that makes you stop mid-sentence, the kind of melody that creeps into your chest and makes you feel something you didn't know you'd been missing. Within seconds, the room grew still. Glasses stopped clinking. Conversations halted. Even the footsteps in the hallway slowed down, as if people didn't want it to disturb whatever was happening. Joe's fingers moved with a quiet confidence. His touch was both strong and tender, like someone who knew how fragile beauty could be. The melody told a story of youth and dreams, of hardships weathered, of nights spent in silence while the rest of the world slept. Somewhere in the back of the room, the intern who had teased him shifted uncomfortably. The smug smile had vanished, and at the far end of the hall, the CEO stood watching. A man known for his unshakable composure, his eyes were narrowing, not in judgment, but in focus. He was listening. Joe closed his eyes as he played, lost in a place far away from marble floors and fluorescent lights. In that moment, he wasn't a janitor. He wasn't invisible. He was simply a man telling his story in the only language that had ever truly made sense to him. When the final note drifted into silence, no one moved, no one spoke. It was as if the room itself didn't want to let go of what they had just heard. The first clap was hesitant, almost uncertain. Then another joined. And suddenly the room erupted into applause, loud, raw, and real. Joe stood slowly, nodding once in thanks, and turned to walk back to his mop bucket. But he hadn't taken more than 2 steps when the CEO's voice rang out. "Joe, where did you learn to play like that?" Every head turned. It wasn't often that the CEO spoke to the janitorial staff. Joe paused, then smiled faintly. "I used to be a musician, sir, a long time ago, before life had other plans." The crowd leaned in, hungry for more. Joe continued, his voice quiet but steady. "I started playing in church when I was a boy. Then in little jazz bars, weddings, anywhere they'd let me. Music was everything to me. But my mama got sick. Bills piled up. I had to take any work I could find. Playing piano didn't keep the lights on, so I put the music away and picked up a mop." You could feel the weight in the room. People who had passed him in the hall every day without a second thought were now seeing a man with a history, with sacrifices that ran deep. The CEO's face softened. "And you've been here how long?" "Almost 25 years, sir." There was a murmur through the crowd. 25 years. 25 years of cleaning floors, emptying trash bins, and locking up offices, while a talent like that had been hidden away. The CEO took a step toward the piano. "Play something else, Joe, please." Joe hesitated for a moment, then sat back down. This time the music was different. It was bold, playful, almost daring. He wove in the gospel hymn his mother used to hum while cooking dinner, letting the warmth of it fill the space. Then, without warning, he slid into a lively jazz riff that made a few people tap their feet before they even realized they were doing it. And just like before, the melody carried more than sound. It carried truth, joy and pain, loss and hope. Everything he had lived through, wrapped in sound. By the time he finished, there was no holding back. People clapped, cheered, even whistled. A few had tears running openly down their cheeks. The CEO wasn't immune either. His voice caught slightly when he said, "Joe, you are more than the work you do here. From now on, whenever we have an event, you're our official pianist." The room broke into cheers. That night, as Joe returned to his cleaning duties, people kept stopping him, some to apologize for underestimating him, others just to say thank you. Joe accepted their words with grace, but he didn't need their validation. He knew who he was. He had always known. As he mopped the last stretch of hallway, he hummed the same hymn he'd played earlier. The music had never left him. It had only been waiting for the right moment to come alive again. And for everyone who had been in that lobby, they would never look at Joe the same way again. They had learned a truth that would stay with them. Greatness doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it pushes a mop. Sometimes it waits quietly for the moment when the world finally stops to listen. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. I've got plenty more inspiring tales coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss them.